let's reapproach this idea of unique self as the essential technology of evolutionary we space. We just talked about it in part 1 clip, so this is part 2. I just want to kind of say it in a simpler manner and tell you a story, right? Actually, 2 short stories. One's about a sailor who gets to Tahiti, and he's desperately looking for a wife. And the custom in Tahiti at this time, this was shortly after Captain Cook had first landed in Tahiti, was that you would negotiate with the girl's father for her hand in marriage. So he sees this girl in the port, and he looks at her and he's completely smitten. He falls madly in love, and he says to his friend, "Wow, look at her, she's beautiful." And his friend looks at her and he says, "I guess, you're not quite sure what to say." And he says, "Let me go find her father." He goes and finds her father, bringing his friend in tow, and he says, "I want to marry your daughter." And his father knows exactly who his daughter is, both her strengths, her weaknesses, the level of her beauty. And and the standard in Tahiti at the time was for the most beautiful, strong, attractive, wise woman, that was 9 cows. And it went down from there. And he says to the sailor, he says, "Okay, that's perfect. My daughter's a 3-cow girl. 3 cows will do it." And the sailor looks at him and he says, "What do you mean? She's not a 3-cow girl. I mean, your daughter is a 9-cow girl." And 9 cows was a fortune. And it was all of his pay that he'd saved for his entire life. But the father, not wanting to be dishonest, he says, "Listen, I could take 4 cows if you really want to pay extra, but anything more than 4 cows, I mean, she's a 3-cow. I love her. She's a 3-cow girl." And he just refuses. The sailor says, "No way. I will not. I refuse. She is a 9-cow girl." And so the father, really having nothing to do, relents and accepts 9 cows for his daughter, feeling quite guilty about the whole thing. The sailor remains in Tahiti, decides that that's where he's going to live. His friend sails away, and it's now 14 years later. And his friend is now returning to Tahiti, wanting to look up his old sailor mate, to visit him, see how he is. And he's walking in the port, and he wants to ask someone, where's my friend live? And he sees coming at him the most stunningly beautiful, gorgeous, radiant woman he's ever seen. And his breath is taken away. And he stops and he asks her and he says, "Do you know," and he gives the name of his friend, "do you know where he lives?" And the woman looks at him with a kind of funny smile, and she says, "Don't you remember me? You were there when your friend, right, negotiated for me, and you were there when we got married. I'm his wife. You remember me?" And he says, "No." He says, and then she tells him his name. And he realizes this must be the case. And he's just shocked. He just doesn't remember her this way. And he goes to his friend and he says, "Wow, is this the same person? Did you find a new wife and you just gave her a different name?" And his friend looks at him and he says, No, this is the same person. This is the same person." And so finally he can't contain himself. And he turns to the woman herself and he says, "You were wonderful 14 years ago, but excuse me for saying so, but you weren't that beautiful. You weren't that," it goes through a list of things. And she looks at him and she says, "You're right. I wasn't that beautiful. I wasn't quite that wise. I wasn't quite that good. But my husband, he said I was a 9-cow girl. And he's looked at me every single day like a 9-cow girl. And you know what that does? It makes you a 9-cow girl. It calls you out to your truest, most beautiful, most gorgeous self." Wow. That's so deep. It's such a deep understanding. And I'll stop actually with one story, because one story is enough right now. But do you hear it? Right? Unique self is the realization that every human being in their own special way is a 9-cow girl. You don't win an Oscar by playing someone else's part in the play. You win an Oscar by playing your part to perfection. So unique self invites a person to be their fullest beauty, their fullest goodness, their fullest truth. When a person begins to know and realize that they can live their fullest truth, goodness, and beauty, They begin to appear as a 9-cow girl and then to radiate that unique depth to the center of the community. And a community, right, emerges the collective intelligence, the wisdom of the community needed to move us, to evolve us to the next level of consciousness, emerges not from a couple of smart leaders, but from a community of 9 cowgirls, right, working together in a stunning existential complementarity, complementing each other, each as unique puzzle pieces, parts of the whole, unique features in the seamless code of the universe.